a Waldorf Astoria is that in particular is a hotel condo, correct?
Correct.
With office.
It's a condo with hotel amenities and service.
So just in the same way, mixed use is like the new popular big real estate development play,
Mm-hmm.
Water Street, right? All these things. In the same way, in individual towers, you're seeing a mix of use like never before.
They're being designed. So they haven't been built yet, haven't been executed yet. But for the first time, yeah, they're looking at multiple uses inside the same structure as opposed to adjacent.
Jim Moeller with JL, welcome to the show. And what's your exact title? Because I don't want to screw that up.
Executive Vice President.
Executive Vice President. And then within that, you said you lead an investment.
Right. So JLL is a large corporate services firm, not only for investors, but corporate occupiers. And we do everything you need. And so with respect to the Tampa office, we have a team of 9 brokers that do nothing but represent occupiers. We have a team of 4 brokers that do nothing but industrial deals. And we have a team of 5, which I'm on, that do nothing but represent investors, landlords, owners of office buildings.
And we're talking about the changing dynamic and demands for office space and how it's not just, this cubicle centric, multi-floor office. It's amenity driven, it's neighborhood driven, location driven.
All those things. Yeah.
Seems more urban too than suburban. Like we were talking Grow Financial,
Right.
they want to be in an urban core. They want their employees to hit a workout class and a coffee before and then after,
Right.
hop on a trolley, go to a Lightning game.
Right.
Like this amenity driven work culture.
Right. It's about lifestyle trophy product, providing as many services and amenities as you can to help recruit and retain workforce. And yet we talk about urban environments, but even in suburban communities like West Shore, which is one of the top performing office markets in Tampa Bay, all throughout in one of the top performing markets across the state of Florida, there's 13 million square feet of office space in West Shore. The total office market in Tampa Bay is about 47 million feet.
Wow.
It's an urban suburban market, right? West Shore doesn't feel like the I-5 or 4 corridor going out to Lakeland and places like that.
And West Shore, if I'm not mistaken, has more employees, more jobs than downtown, like 100,000 employees or something.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. And again, talking about the inventory of space. So 13 million feet in West Shore, there's 8 million square feet of office space in downtown Tampa.
And people sort of forget that because you've got the FAA restrictions and some of those building height restrictions. But, if they didn't have those restrictions, that really would almost be like a Buckhead in terms of like a secondary downtown, secondary towers.
That was happening. There was a wave of that, a migration from the traditional downtown. This is before Live, Work, Play and the new development that's come online that we've seen. There was migration to West Shore. And then what happened, there's been a lot of mayors that have championed development in downtown Tampa.
Yeah.
Mayor Buckhorn was a big proponent of grow, baby, grow as it relates to downtown Tampa. And so multifamily, hotel, restaurants, additional office options, opening downtown, leveled the playing field, if you will, with what was migration towards West Shore. It's pretty much a level playing field now.
And you've been working in this market, you said, since 2005. And back then, there really wasn't a whole lot going on downtown besides the 9-to-5 workplace. Everyone knows the story, right? It would like clear out after 5 p.m.
Right.
And when Buckhorn got in office, yeah, he was a champion of downtown. Like he wanted to revitalize it. And look where we're at today,
Look where
right?
we're at.
And then you see some of the office rents Water Street is getting. Some of these new product you said was like $75 a square foot.
75, right? To get into 1001 Water Street, it's $75 a foot, full service gross.
And in your career, the ceiling was always 30.
Until the last 10 years, the best buildings in the market, which would be what's now known as Truist Place, Bank of America Plaza, and 100 North Tampa, were $30 full service gross rent buildings.
And this goes against some of the headlines we spoke about before we hopped on air here about, it seems like office is a place where investment is exiting, right? In different markets around the country. But not true here. Do you attribute that to our product was older vintage? I mean, we didn't necessarily have the 1001 10 years ago to capture some of that demand?
There's some of that. A lot of it, though, is financial market driven. So lenders were overweight on office. Big correction coming out of the pandemic, remote work, giving back office space in major markets across the country. We're very fortunate that we didn't see the same level of that here in Tampa. with regard to investment, equity investment by investors, they would look at multifamily, they would look at industrial. They were getting better returns
Yeah.
than they would on office deals. That's changing now, right now. We're in the process of coming back. There's more. Tampa's had a long history of private equity investors that look at our market. They are very much looking at it now. There's 4 or 5 office buildings that are being marketed for sale right now that are getting a lot of interest.
Page, I think it says 78. There's not 78 pages in the deck,
There is
David.
no.
No, and I'm glad there's not. That would have been but it's the one that says new office development, and you've got some deliveries online
Right.
of, what is it, 4, 5, 6, 7 different buildings. You'll see it if you keep going, David. But I want to bring it back to the Waldorf Astoria in St. Pete.
Right.
You said that, hey, this is sort of a new concept where you've, at least here in this market, we've got this tower, hotel component, condominium, which, by the way, also, David, could you pull up the contract price on the penthouse there? I want to say it was like $27 million for the Waldorf Astoria in St. Pete, right? Something like that.
It's north of 25. Yeah.
North of 25, like a very dramatic number, right?
Yeah.
Especially for this market.
Sure.
And included in that building is also office.
They are contemplating putting office space as part of that structure.
Okay. And that's new for this market
That's new.
in terms of the mix of use in a single building.
Inside a single building, correct.
And your indication and what I'm gathering from just what we've talked about so far is that's going to be a trend moving forward. But it's hard to say until the demand can.
Right. It's harder to manage. It's harder to plan because the experience coming in and out of the building for somebody that would be going to a condo unit and what that's like when they encounter somebody that's going to office space, you need to be very thoughtful as to how everything gets designed and how everything flows together. As you would imagine, people going to their homes might look different than people going to their office space.
Right. And so, you said there's a lot of
There you go.
private
You were right
equity
there.
investment and yeah, 27 million penthouse sale at Waldorf Astoria residence in downtown St. Pete shatters Tampa Bay condo record. I wonder what the record was before. I'm sure you could find it in the article, David. But that is what a number
Right.
for this market.
Right.
27 million
Right.
for a condo. The previous high in St. Pete was an 8.25 million penthouse at Saltaire. Wow. In Tampa, the record was 11.6 at the Ritz-Carlton. Another recent, both of those new developments, right? So you've definitely have this trend towards a higher end, including in office space.
Yes, very much. And again, it's about the overall satisfaction and energy and the production that you can get from workforce that are part of the real estate, the built environment, if you will, if you want to use that language. But again, we can get into this as part of this, but regular office space, there's still a place for in a market like Tampa. And the very large transactions happened at the beginning of this year in what was looked at as commodity Class A office space, to in particular Fisher Investments. It's over 320,000 feet signed a lease at the beginning of this year. As far as our records go back, it's the biggest lease in Tampa Bay office leasing history.
Wow.
And that happened in Renaissance Center, which is technically in the Northwest Tampa submarket, just north of West Shore. It's where Capital One had a corporate campus before things changed for Capital One. And then WellCare came in, and WellCare got bought by Centene, and so things changed with regard to that project. But that's where Fisher is now. And then Geico came in and leased 190,000 feet in the Corporate Oaks development on the south side of West Shore, the submarket off of Cypress. And that's real estate that New York Life occupied previously. They amenitized it, but it's not Water Street. It's not GasWorx. It's not the corporate center buildings,
Yeah.
International Mall. It's not Met West. It was quote unquote commodity office space, but it was well amenitized, well maintained, and they had the footprint for Geico to see themselves occupying. So it's not just the best of the best. It's very much led by the best of the best, but office buildings that are amenitized with access to surrounding amenities and rooftops are performing in Tampa as well.
Wow. And those two large leases, when were those executed?
At the beginning of this year.
Really?
From a leasing activity standpoint, we had over 1.5 million square feet of office space transact in the first quarter of this year. relatively speaking, again, the office market's 47 million feet. And so when you have 1.5 million happen, it set a record in Tampa. It set a record nationally. We had more leasing activity in the first quarter of this year than New York City.
Whoa. And so some of the conversations we've had on the show is almost like a now what, right? Where
Mhm.
it's like you've had this extreme, unprecedented demand during COVID. A lot of people moved here,
Right,
a lot of wealthy people,
right, right.
business owners, companies, etc. Then you saw a leveling out. You've had the issues in the financial markets, etc. So what we've talked about on the show is this lull period or this almost downward trend. This information speaks sort of against that.
It's unique to Tampa. Again, we're a special place, and we've got a slide here if you want to pull up the segmentation of industries in Tampa relative to Orlando and Miami, and you look at the number of jobs that are in each one of the industries. We're the most diverse economy across the state of Florida. No more than 20% of the workforce in Tampa is in any one industry, and so we're at just shy of 20% for business services, 19.4%. Look at Miami, trade and transportation. Shocking, it's an international port hub city.
Yeah,
23%. Orlando, as you would guess, the mouse and all things associated with that.
sure.
Leisure and hospitality, 20%. And so, as we went through the great financial crisis, GFC in 2008, we corrected faster than some other markets across the state. As we've gone through the pandemic, which is 5 years in the rearview mirror at this point. I mean, I think people should be mindful of the fact that there's not another shoe to drop. Most lease transactions in this market are around 5 years. The pandemic happened in March 15th of 2020, right, to put a date on it.
Coming up on
We're
6.
exactly right. So companies have done the right sizing that they're going to do if they're going to do right sizing. They've recognized the value prop that Tampa has as a market, and they've transacted accordingly. And so these are all wonderful things for Tampa. Why
So
we're outperforming the national headlines.
we've talked to on the show about like, well, what's Tampa's like big industry? Austin has this sort of tech thing, and
Right.
so et cetera. Maybe that's not the best for our community. Maybe a diversification of
Right.
jobs is what we
Right.
need.
What we have seen, and what really was a springboard for Tampa, and really to set up a performance that we're talking about right now, is that the Fortune 2000 that were in the gateway markets, New York City, San Francisco, Boston, in the ivory towers, paying well north of $100 per square foot in rents, and had workforce that were paid well north of 6 figures, were performing job functions that the skilled and educated workforce in Tampa can provide for not as much money. So groups like Johnson & Johnson, Bristol Myers Squibb, DTCC came down to Tampa. PricewaterhouseCoopers, their second largest employee base of operations is in Tampa.
Wow.
The business of PricewaterhouseCoopers is run out of Tampa. It's not just an audit hub, if you will. I mean, corporate headquarters is still Manhattan, but very large presence in this market. And so what they found is that workforce, it's all about workforce. We've got a slide here, interesting trivia, just with respect to the what's now called UTampa. 75% of students that come through UTampa stay in Florida. Think
Yeah.
about that just over your life, how much has changed and how much the school has changed.
All of those students would always go back to the
Right,
Northeast
right.
generally.
Now they're
But now
staying.
they want to stay.
Now they're staying. And so the corporate functions that we're talking about here is HR, it's risk management, it's accounting, it's all the necessary things you need from a corporate standpoint, operations standpoint. They can do those job functions here in Tampa, and they've been performing really well.
Well, it's critical for the success of the city and the region because we talk all the time about affordability of housing, right?
Right, right,
Affordability of anything in general.
right.
You got to have the wage
do.
growth to support that.
Right.
This is what this is, right?
Correct.
When you have these large companies moving here with hundreds or thousands of high-paying jobs, that's
Right.
going to support the inflation of all the real estate
right.
that we've seen.
That's right.
And so are you getting feedback at a casual level from some of these organizations that move their headquarters here or move a large chunk of their workforce here? Do they talk about, pros and cons or things they expect or didn't expect? Are we missing something? Is it education?
I mean, I don't think I'm going to be blazing a trail here. I think you've covered a lot of this in previous episodes. It's mass transportation.
Sure.
Clearly education, not necessarily from the university standpoint, but the primary and secondary schools.
Yeah.
especially if they're coming from Boston. It's so hard to compete against that. And then healthcare to a certain extent.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to is like some of these markets that these companies and these people are coming from are so well developed in their
Hmm.
transportation, in their cityscape, and in all of it, right? I mean, when you go to Boston and you see the way that the city's laid out, how they have all the parks and everything's walkable and it's well connected and you've got the public transportation, we're just on the beginning phases. I mean, we've only in the last few years started to just do some ground
Right,
level infrastructure work and get going on that.
right.
Are there companies that are moving here that are going, clock's ticking? If they don't figure this out, we're gonna
No,
no.
no, no,
They're
no.
committed to this
They're
region.
committed. Just an anecdote. What's interesting is that we've been pursuing a tech company for one of our clients' projects, and their main base of operations is in Austin. And you would think that they would have a difficult time attracting talent to Tampa
Sure.
in relation to Austin, but it's the exact opposite. And what they're finding with regard to the folks that they've got coming in is that Austin, especially as relates to tech, is much more transaction and transitional oriented. As soon as you sign on for a job with ABC company, you're looking for a job with XYZ company. And that's not the case in Tampa. They're able to retain workforce better in Tampa than they're able to in Austin.
So this is what I'm gathering. This is the beginning of a new trend where you're going to start to see some companies identify this market as something really special for their
It,
employees,
it's
for
it's we're
themselves.
we're in the third inning of that. It's already started.
Wow, amazing. And when you go to talk to these larger organizations about moving their headquarters here, is it a hard sell? I mean, we got the palm trees, we got no state income tax, we
Not
got
anymore. It,
not
it
anymore.
was, it was, but not anymore. Word is out. Like, again, enough have done the migration, have moved here. They've got the case studies, and a lot of corporate American decisions, especially as relates to real estate, comes back to risk management and downside. What if we pulled the trigger and we make the investment as you were referencing, and it doesn't work out? Oh my gosh, I'm the corporate real estate director. My head's on the chopping block. The fact that people have proven it before you're making that decision now enables that decision now to occur.
A little bit of a snowball
Right.
effect.
Right.
And so when you have all these companies looking at Tampa and this market to move to, you mentioned that it sort of was a hard sell back in 2005, post financial crisis, and then of course, through the 2010s. Was there any one thing that changed? Like what really was the catalyst that put us on the map to be able to sign more office square footage than New York City first quarter of this year?
Right.
That's a
Right.
significant
It,
fact.
it's amazing. And again, I don't know if I can point to one thing beyond the fact that somebody got it and convinced somebody to take a flyer and that it worked. And this is all pre-Water Street. So again, this trend was occurring before Water Street even got presented as the project that was going to help redefine Tampa. I think it comes back to Time Warner. Time Warner was the first one to make the commitment to come into Tampa. Again, look at it as a regional headquarters operation for the job functions that they had moved here. And because we got Time Warner, then you got Bristol Myers Squibb, then you got Pfizer, then you got Johnson and Johnson. It's the snowball effect.
And Foot Locker too, right?
Foot Locker is moving in this month. The
Wow.
corporate headquarters relocation from New York City, 111,000 feet into St. Pete.
111,000 feet into
Right,
St. Pete.
right.
Seems like out of the blue in my head. I mean, I'm not in your world, of course, but Foot Locker headquartered in St. Pete. I just never would have thought that growing up here.
Um, they had been looking at this market for quite some time, years, Garrett.
Wow.
And it stems, I think it stems back to the fact that they owned Champs Sports that had a base of operations in Bradenton. And so they were already on the radar screen. The executives were already making those trips. And they fell in love with all the things that there are to fall in love with.
Sure.
It's the availability and quality of the workforce. It's the cost of living. It's the weather. It's
Yeah.
the tax non-burdensome environment that we live in. It's relative to other markets. It's all those things.
And probably too the push factor on the back end of, oh, we're paying, I don't know where they were headquartered, but you alluded to companies were paying like over $100 a square
Right.
foot in New York.
Right.
They're having to pay their employees a lot of money to live there.
Right.
So you have that pressure too, that sort of natural, not bubble, but huge expense of your typical Boston market, New
Right.
York market. And then they come down here and they're like, it's pretty good down here,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
of course, their employees are probably not shy, to the idea that they can come move to Florida. I mean, this is a
Right.
great place,
Right. I
right?
moved here in 2005 from Chicago. I know I was that person.
Yeah.
And so I went through you go through the math, you go through the lifestyle adjustment and all those things. This is a great place to consider to move to. And we talk about the rents now and where they are and how it just would make your head explode if you kind of disappeared in 1990. Now you're awakening from your long sleep.
Right.
And wow, this is what it costs now? Yeah, well, it costs. But think about it from the perspective of JLL about 7 or so years ago commissioned a study for corporate occupiers in really any town in USA. And the average firm is spending $3 a square foot on utilities. They're spending $30 a square foot on rent. They're spending $300 a square foot on workforce. So
Whoa.
the needle mover is workforce. What can you do to get the best workforce that you possibly can and keep the best workforce that you possibly can? You can use real estate as a tool to achieve that. And that's what a lot of the new development and occupiers into the new development, that's what they were going after, that recipe. Because the $30 square foot rent number, if it goes to 40, if it goes to 50, if it goes to 60, if it helps you with the $300 square foot number, it's an easy trade to make.
Which really ties back into transportation too, right? I mean,
It does.
if your employees have to live way out of the job
Right.
center
Right.
to afford to live, then they're all in traffic. That's more expense.
That's one of the unique things and amazing things about where we live is that the ideal commute for an occupier is plus or minus 20 minutes. 30 minutes is okay. 40 minutes, you start to stress. You go above 40 minutes, and it's a problem getting workforce, which is why you don't have large Fortune 2000 presence in a market like downtown St. Pete, is because you're surrounded by water on 3 sides.
So
It
this
takes too long to get into the office.
those conversations are happening. Like
They're
you'll
happening.
talk to a large employer and they'll go, great market, love it,
Love it.
not enough transportation assets for
Right.
us to make a commitment.
Right. But again, I think it comes back to workforce more. I don't think transportation is fatal. It doesn't help, and
Sure.
we're all working really hard to try and find the solution, but it's not in front of us yet.
There were some really interesting solutions this morning. The Ybor Chamber had a panel. It was Raul Alfonso, VP of the Port Tampa Bay, Greg Slater, CEO of Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority, Michael Stevens, CEO of the airport, and then the gentleman, the district secretary, sorry, I don't remember your name, from Florida Department of Transportation. They were gung-ho. Like
Mhm.
they were up there, talking about how they're working together to be super bold. I mean, the ideas that they had were probably some of the things that this community's talked about for longer than I've been alive. But you could tell the commitment is real. I think they all recognize that this is sort of the next level of our region, is a serious commitment to infrastructure and,
Sure.
and transportation. I mean, they talked about doing, linking airport to the downtown.
Right.
FDOT FDOT at the new West Shore interchange, which is $1 billion interchange they're building, has the space to do some sort of a rail or people mover through it.
Right.
Thea has a ownership of real estate downtown where they could do like a multimodal air taxi trolley type thing. So it's on the radar, and it's more important than ever to those entities. And it sounds like it's not a killer, like you said, to
Right.
to attracting these large corporations to move here and give us thousands of great jobs. But
Right.
at a certain point, you got to imagine, if you don't have a good level of transportation, that puts a ceiling on us.
Yeah, and I know you've talked about this in previous episodes, but Atlanta, right? So Atlanta went through explosive growth, and public transportation there is not what they would want. And you look at our peer markets, Nashville, Charlotte, Raleigh. They're not besting us. Everyone is struggling with the same issue.
Well, I think in any American city, it's sort of the same issues,
Sure.
right? Yeah, I think our region has so much to offer. It's sort of no wonder why you have so much attention on us, but it does surprise me a little bit that we've continued some of the level of demand, especially the fact you gave me about, having more office lease than New York.
Right. Yeah, that was just in the first quarter this year.
Just and of course that's attributed to those big leases, et cetera.
Right.
Probably when you average it out, it looks a little
Correct.
bit different.
Correct. But still,
Still is a shocking fact.
so I'll give you another fact. And so, with regard to our downtowns, both St. Pete and Tampa, if you look at markets across the country that are at least 45 million square feet, and this is a 47 billion square foot market in Tampa Bay, occupancy in our downtowns is the fifth best of any market in the country.
Wow.
So, New York, Miami, Orange County, and San Diego.
There was a
We're
slide on
number
that
five.
too, I believe. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Submarket stats. There was a vacancy slide. If you
Yeah.
can find it, David, wherever that is. The other one you've got
There you
here
go.
is something we spoke about, I think, before we went on, was this is the third largest MSA, Metropolitan Statistic area in the Southeast.
In the Southeast. Only smaller than Atlanta and Miami. So
People don't realize.
bigger than Nashville, bigger than Charlotte, bigger than Raleigh, bigger than Orlando.
I was about to say people don't realize how many people live here, but then I feel like we all do when we're driving around.
Right.
It's like yesterday I went down to Sarasota for my mom's birthday, and like the entire way was traffic.
Hmm.
And I was just looking around thinking, this is just so shocking. I grew up, my dad's family's from Tampa, mom's from Sarasota, grew up going back and forth. I'm 33, and the volume of people that have moved to our state into this area is so unbelievable to me. It's
Right.
just shocking to see. And it sounds like it's more to come.
There's no reason to believe that it won't.
Right.
And if it hadn't happened, we're not sitting here having this conversation today.
Right. Exactly. On the development side, I'm sure you have conversations inbound from across the country. Hey, we've been in X market for 30 years. We've sold our assets. We like Tampa Bay.
Hmm.
What's going on? Are you receiving a lot of those inbound calls of developers that want to place office space or real estate developments here?
We are fortunate in that we've got a lot of local investment groups that know the area really well. Development's hard. I mean, as you know, there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of relationship exercising that happens in order to get a development going. And so it's harder for a group to come in from out of town and execute on that. Local partnership is important. And I mean, Water Street Tampa SPP was built for that project. They brought in executives that knew what they were doing, but they assembled a team. I think at one point they had close to 70 people that were working for the development of Water Street and nothing else. We talked about Casey Allison and what he's doing with multiple projects around the city. Daryl Shaw knows his way around. We're helping Daryl and Kettler on the GasWorx development. It takes somebody that knows what they don't know in order to make that bet on development. Office development, cost of construction is really high. The cost of getting money from a lending institution is really high. Your cost of capital for investors is really high. It's hard to pencil, but it's coming around. What's unique about a market like Tampa, as we relate ourselves to, say, Dallas or Atlanta, is that for the office projects that have been developed here, you have to build them and make the commitment to building them, and then they will lease, and they will lease strongly, but you have to make the commitment to build them first. They don't get leased on renderings.
Which shifts through the market. Like I would imagine during COVID, when we had this unprecedented demand, you may have seen some leases pre-construction versus now it's a little more commitment driven on the developer side.
You really didn't even during COVID. I mean,
Maybe has that never been the case?
My records don't go that far back,
Sure.
but not that I can think of right now.
But we did talk about how Grove Financial made a
Right.
commitment very early on.
Very early on. They knew what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And the opportunity emerged as part of GasWorx. And they made the commitment to come in and be a part of that neighborhood and that project. even though they hadn't disposed of the real estate that they owned and branded yet.
Wow. That's such a strong commitment. It just shows you how dialed in they were on what they wanted.
Right.
And you of course have research and relationships at I'll call it the top level with the developers, investors, and then your team also works with the companies themselves, right?
Correct.
Finding the space.
Right.
Do you do any sort of relationship or conversations with employees and what they like and what they want, or do you kind of leave that to the company itself? Probably.
It's driven by the company, but there's also, I mean, we have consulting groups inside our organization that they can engage with that will facilitate those conversations. So you can go through your discovery, if you will, of what the employee needs are, and we help companies that go through that process. Architects, really good architects and planners do a good job of that as well.
This episode is brought to you by the official remodeler of the TBD podcast, Kohler House Remodeling Company. Built on the belief that every homeowner deserves a premium experience, Kohler House is redefining high-end home remodeling with their commitment to integrity, craftsmanship, and quality communication. Their work speaks for itself, from condos in the towers of Channelside to 100-year-old homes in South Tampa, creating spaces that are both stunning and functional. What sets Kohler House Remodeling Company apart is their dedication to not only transforming homes into beautiful spaces, but to elevating the standard of residential general contracting. From concept to completion, every detail is handled with care, ensuring a process that's as smooth as the results are impressive. To learn more, check out our partner's website at kohlerhouse.net, KOHLERHAUS.net. This episode is sponsored by Chansey Architecture and Interior Design. Rooted in the heart of Ybor City for over 35 years, Walt Chansey and his team are trailblazers in their field. Beyond their work across the United States and the Bahamas, Chansey has shaped some of the most iconic residential and commercial spaces that serve as gateways to Cigar City, including Casa Marti and Casa Gomez. What sets Chansey Design apart is their ability to preserve the soul and character of historic buildings while seamlessly integrating modern design and functionality. They blend tradition with innovation, creating spaces that honor the past while meeting today's needs. Check out their work at www.chanseydesign.com. To me, again, I'm not in the commercial real estate world nearly as deep as you are, but for me, from the outside looking in, that was like a defining office product for this city.
For sure.
For sure,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you go inside that building, you go to the rooftop amenity, it's incredible.
It
It's
is.
so pretty.
It is.
And they've broken records with the rent they're getting.
Correct.
And you constantly see in the Business Journal new commitments.
Mhm.
And do you know where they're at on leasing? Is the building fully?
They're almost fully leased. They have a single floor left, the third floor. It's the only one that's remaining available.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Huge success story.
If we go back into Tampa Bay, kind of real estate development history, in that building delivered into the summer of 2022. There was 1.2 million feet of development that came online within that window of time. The last time that Tampa had that same level of new additions to office space, we have to go back to 2007. It took 3 years from the time that the building achieved a certificate of occupancy until the point that it stabilized, which is meaning at least north of 90%. This last wave of development happened in 18 months.
Whoa.
Midtown East is the office building that has finished now this year. They CO'd in June. That's a joint venture of Bromley and Highwoods. They only have a single floor left in the spec office portion of that building. So that's a little unique, and that the building itself is about 420,000 feet. And Tampa Electric, the parent company for Tampa Electric, acquired a condo interest in that building for about 290,000 feet. So think of it as 130,000 feet of spec office. They only have one floor, 25,000 feet and change left available in that building, and it opened in June of this year.
Wow. But again, look at the ground floor. Look what you've got.
Correct.
And how do you replicate that? If you're looking in this area, it's hard to replicate. Some of the new developments clearly understand that you've got to have this mix of use. You need the restaurants and the shops, the different retail, right?
For sure.
People love that and want that lifestyle. And then what else do we have here? I mean, anything notable?
I mean, I think the Halcyon project, the Central project, is incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
That's out in the Edge District in St. Pete, and it's mixed use with hotel, and there's going to be some multifamily and office, and that's the office part's going to break ground as we get into the beginning of next year.
Class A, beautiful. David, see if you can find some renderings. What they're doing over there is amazing.
Super exciting, and again, credit where credit's due. So one of the partners in that development is Sid Paggity, and it reported in the Business Journal that he happened to find himself in possession of a dinosaur skeleton. And so,
Renderings of
yeah,
the
you're going to want to see this. What's super amazing about this is that
Which building?
it's the hotel. It'll be, if you look Dinosaur Halcyon or Central and St. Pete, we'll bring you right to the article.
probably just the Central Ellison, and then it'll probably pull up the website.
So you've got hotel rooms that would look on top of a parking structure. That's a little less than desirable, right?
Sure.
What if there was a dinosaur on top of the parking structure? They took what was going to be a lower room rate and now made it a premium room rate.
Now, this is a little bit different for St. Pete. Growing up here, St. Pete was like condos and apartments, older population, Central Avenue. They had the arts and sort of culture emphasis there downtown on the waterfront.
There's our dinosaur.
Class A office was not, from my understanding, on the radar in St. Pete.
It's
traditionally.
Right. So the scale, 47 million square foot office market in Tampa Bay. In downtown St. Pete, you only have 2 million feet. And the reason why you only have 2 million feet is, again, the challenge with regard to getting large numbers of workforce to that location because you're surrounded by water on three sides. That's why the gateway market in Pinellas County exists.
Right. And so here's a rendering of the dinosaur rooftop proposal. Dino Garden, I guess they're calling it. Yeah, incredible. Look at that thing. Scroll down. What kind of, is it a raptor? Like, what is this thing? Tyrannosaurus Rex? No. Gorgosaurus. Wow.
I'm glad that you tackled that name, not me.
Yeah, in my head I was like, am I really going to try this right now? 76 million years old. Now, this is the same family that also donated Big John to the Children's Museum in 2022, which, if you haven't been to check that thing out, I think it's like the largest Triceratops in the world, right?
There you go. Yeah, it was referenced in that article.
Wow. So super, like that story. I mean, you've been here since 2005. That's such a kind of mind screw. Like, you would have never thought St. Pete would receive that level of a dedication to Class A office space downtown.
Right. No. Again, the whole area has transformed since I've been
The whole
here.
region. Yeah.
Right. And again, when I moved here and they were doing the condo development and there were more cultural things to be able to participate in, more restaurant options, downtown Tampa wanted to be downtown St. Pete. They were ahead of the curve.
For sure.
And
arguably still are, right? They've got the local thing. I mean, you go down Central Avenue, what they've done there over the last couple decades is incredible.
Right.
Super unique, homegrown, all the different restaurants and coffee shops. And what I think is really cool now is you've got this like cross-pollination. Tampa operators, they want a second location across the bridge, vice versa.
Right.
You're starting. I mean, that's what Ellison is kind of doing.
For sure.
I think Ellison and all of them started on this side, and now this is their first large development in St. Pete.
Right.
And you're probably going to continue to see that. Both downtowns are going to be these hyper desirable urban places where people want to live, work, play, etc.
We've got all the exciting things that are happening in GasWorx, and that's all known and programmed. To be determined what's going to happen with Ybor Harbor, and then the Trop and the site of the Trop, and what's going to happen there. Nothing but opportunity. That
news just got announced too. Ellison, along with Kathy Wood, has partnered together. I think Sid's involved as well in putting out, I think, a bid to work with the city to develop that entire, I think, 80 acres, something like that.
That sounds right. Yeah,
80 or so acres. You put it all together and you go, wow, the whole region is going to continue to transform. Let's talk speculation a little bit for more office space.
Okay.
Water Street Phase 2, GasWorx future phases, a lot of it's market driven, of course. It's all market driven.
It's all market driven.
Do you anticipate more office towers in these developments?
Definition of towers changing. And so we were talking before.
Correct.
big buildings in
Yeah.
downtown Tampa, the 30 plus stories, skyscrapers are north of 500,000 square feet. None of that is happening now as part of this cycle. Square footage is being reallocated to other use. It's going multifamily, it's going hotel, it's going retail, and all the various forms of retail. Um, Today's office building looks more like 100 to 200,000 square feet. And so, with regard to Water Street in the next phase, they've been out saying that there's a pad that they could build another building on, plus or minus 400,000 feet. They're looking for a pre-lease commitment of around 250,000 feet. I just told you the largest lease in Tampa history was 320,000 feet. 250 is a really, really big lease, and so we'll see if that's achievable. As these groups look at where they're putting their money, expect more condo, expect more multifamily as part of what you see in Water Street, based on what they've told us so far. Us meaning the market. With regard to GasWorx, there's 500,000 square feet of entitlements for office. Now that's movable. There's 100,000 feet that is under construction now, just topped off. That's the building where Grow Financial is going to be. We have 50,000 feet of office space left. They could build more office, but as of right now, it's not contemplated that they're going to make an announcement that we're building another spec building. They're finishing what's in process right now, learning how it's being received by the market. Again, I don't want to get over my skis
Sure.
and say too much about something I'm not allowed to talk about. But there's a lot of dynamics in mixed use type that'll be a part of the GasWorks project.
Is it safe could you make the argument that we might not ever see in the next few decades a skyscraper of pure office like you have here in downtown Tampa?
I don't see that happening.
Because you also have sort of the job loss. I mean, the way companies are moving and shifting, and technology and
Right.
AI and all this sort of stuff, you might not see a need ever again for an office tower that's 500,000 square feet and 45 floors.
Right.
Like that just might not happen again.
Not in a market like Tampa.
Not in a market like Tampa. But larger markets around the world will probably always have demand for these huge headquarters, New York City, et cetera, et cetera.
JP Morgan Chase built a $3 billion tower in downtown Manhattan.
How many square feet was that? Do you know?
I think it's 3 million feet.
It's so crazy to think about numbers in that way. Like look up Hudson Yards. Like how many square feet of office was just in that one development? Like millions, right? Probably.
Oh, sure.
It's crazy to think in those numbers. So you said 43 million square feet of office is in the Tampa Bay region.
40, yeah, not getting a 47. So
And that includes multiple counties.
that's primarily, it's Hillsborough and Pinellas.
Hillsborough and Pinellas.
Right. We're not getting into Sarasota, and there's really not a meaningful office market north of Northdale, if you will.
Sure. Yeah, what's Hudson Yards? So 30 Hudson Yards offering 2.6 million square feet, and 50 Hudson Yards providing 2.9. So yeah, like 5 or 6 million square feet of office space. Maybe that's total square footage.
18
But
million was referenced there.
18 million is the total square footage. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. But it's New York.
Right.
It's New York, right? New York is always going to attract that, multi-thousand employee building of
Right.
a single
Right.
tenant.
Well, I mean, what's happening politically in New York City right now has national attention. What happens with this
Yes.
mayoral race
Yes.
might have some effect on us in a positive way.
I wanted to dip our toes into that a little bit and talk about demand. Nationally, political issues, international crisis, you definitely, everyone knows eyes are on Florida. There's news all the time about a new headquarters in South Florida, especially. I think even like West Palm Beach has received some
It's been tremendous.
unbelievable. I mean,
Related has done so well there.
I've had the opportunity to go down to Palm Beach and West Palm Beach, weddings and various little things.
Mm-hmm.
You would not believe some of the development going on in West Palm Beach. I mean, and super intricate architecture, like some
World-class.
serious commitment to the
Right.
development down there. And a lot of it's Northeastern firms
Right.
getting out of New York.
Right.
Uh,
And sometimes paying more rent to be in Palm Beach than they are in Manhattan.
That is incredible. And you have to imagine too, when those migrations occur, those executives those employees eventually make their way to our coast. They get a second home. They
Right.
come over, they check it out. Years later, second office opens up here, and the whole
Right.
thing sort of works in our favor in that way.
Right.
Um, all the news cycle is sort of talking about whatever happens in the mayoral race. If it's Mamdani, I've destroyed his name 1,000 times. I think it's Mamdani, but yeah, people are saying, "Oh, we're going to exit New York." But we just talked about some of these new developments in New York and these headquarters. We can't imagine New York
No.
is going to have this mass
No.
exodus.
No.
Certainly some,
There will be some.
but the idea that it's a mass exodus, I think, is probably overblown. Unless you're getting calls, maybe your phone's off the hook.
No, no, not with regard to that. I mean, the name of the game with regard to real estate investment, it's, the Gretzky thing, skate to where the puck is going to go, not where it is right now. And so there's a lot of that that's happening right now. But if you look at, certain markets in Connecticut and what happened when they lost major employers, it's not a fantastic place
Yeah.
from that standpoint, fiscally, with regard to the situation there.
And you've had the continued migration pattern down here outside of that.
We have.
So you
With
can't.
it's really unique from the perspective of, yes, migration coming down, 95 from the Northeast, 75 from Midwest. We're also seeing it now from California and from Texas. And where else are we seeing it? From South Florida to Central Florida.
What do you attribute that to?
It's harder in all the ways that we define hard. It's more expensive, as you said. Just even the commute to Sarasota, bumper to bumper, the avenue's packed.
Yeah.
Tampa's an easier quality of life.
We're seeing it on the residential side too. The people that would have typically been in the high-end market for a waterfront home that could have spent $6, $8, $10 million, that doesn't frankly get you a whole lot down
Right.
there. I mean, some of the home prices, the highest in the world, are in South Florida. $100+ million properties dotting the South Florida coastline. Naples has always been a really strong high-end residential market, but that is being pushed up this coast as well, because I think people that have landed here, that have looked here, especially around the country, when they think of Florida, they do think of South Florida.
Sure.
But they get to South Florida and they go, this is crazy. This is a mess. This is millions of people on top of each other
Right.
for unbelievable prices. And then they come here and they go, this is a good value, a good quality of life. And you
Right.
still got the palm trees and the beaches.
That's true.
And
And schools, don't forget about schools.
And
I mean, it's
schools.
a challenge in South Florida.
yeah, super hyper competitive,
Right.
extremely expensive,
Mhm.
etc. And then you just saw the news about the Waldorf $27 million penthouse.
Right.
So it's like, it's not just the office market too. The residential market has been unbelievably strong here. And I think it's because people land in South Florida. Maybe they live there for a couple years and then they come try our coast out.
Sure.
You're probably going to see that migration pattern occur for years and years and years to come, where South Florida is overinflated, as it has been for a while.
Right.
And some of those upper end market and markets in terms of residential and office and all of it are going to look over here and go, this is a good option too.
Yeah. It's an awesome place to live. I'm
100%.
just thrilled to be here.
And then on GasWorx, let's talk a little bit about Grow Financial, right? It's like you said that they were dialed in on what they want. Do you see other companies making strong bets like they did? I mean, signing a lease before you've got out of your old place.
That's a little unique.
That's a little
But
unique.
yes, I mean, you definitely, again, understand what you need to drive success, again, on the $300 a square foot number, as opposed to just laser focusing on $30 a square foot or $3 a square foot. I mean, you want that experience. Recruiting is still hard. I think that we're more in balance from a supply and demand perspective on labor than we've been for a while. Coming out of the pandemic, it was hard for companies to recruit and retain. It's easier now, but I don't see that changing.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like employers are willing to pay for it too. I mean, they're willing to pay what this market perceives as a premium to be in these locations.
Right. And you relate us to a market like Orlando, which, demographically is a little bit different, but it's not a large degree of difference between what we have here in Tampa and your top of market rents in downtown Orlando don't even crack $40 a foot, and here we are at 75.
Are there any developments like, the Central or 1001? Are there any Class A office developments in Orlando happening in the urban core?
I'm not as intimately familiar with that. I do believe that there's at least one that Lincoln Property Company was involved in, but I can't speak to the performance of that.
Why do you think this region has received a lot more? Certainly, you can say safely,
I think a lot of it
than
has to do
Orlando.
with water, and I think the highest degree of boat ownership in the country is in Tampa Bay.
Is it really?
Yeah, again, surrounded by water on so many sides.
Right. Yeah, and I guess when people in general think of Florida, they expect water.
Right.
Mm. Orlando does get a lot of stuff ahead of us. I mean, we had the other pie chart, which was interesting.
Hmm.
If you could go back to that,
Yeah.
David. Tourism and leisure was huge. Orlando crushes us in regards to something like conventions, right? They've got
Yeah.
these massive
Right.
conventions. I did want to ask you about that. Does that play a role in attracting large companies? Is us having space for large worldwide trade shows, et cetera?
You need to ask Santiago that question.
Yeah,
Of course, it feels like yes.
sure.
And there's so much, call it spillover, that happens with regard to those meetings, because that's going to drive development of hotels,
Yeah.
which is then going to drive.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all connected. But kind of what I'm getting at is almost, and I asked you earlier about it, just to reiterate, this almost like feedback you've gotten in your 20 years here in this market. I think you said you've been in this industry for 30
Yeah.
years.
Right.
Started off in Chicago,
Right.
came down to Tampa, here for 20 years. The feedback of these employers coming here, I mean, what has shifted in their feedback in the last 20 years?
I think to a certain extent, they're still very pleasantly surprised as to how well they're doing, exceeding expectations. Again, just because of what we have to offer.
Still today,
Still today.
we still live in
Yeah,
that.
we're still in the early innings of where Tampa's going to go as a market, for sure.
Does all of the renderings and Water Street phase 2, 3, et cetera, future phases, GasWorx, what's to come, does that play a role in these large companies looking at this market and making commitments?
One of the lessons learned, we were helping SPP in the pre-construction marketing for Water Street, and we would go on road shows to major markets around the country, and we would present Water Street to these real estate service companies that would engage with their occupier clients. And what we learned through that process is that it's all about workforce. They don't move because of real estate. They move because of workforce, and then real estate follows workforce.
Adding in the University of Tampa, those kids wanting to stay
For
here.
sure.
So that kind of you're alluding to, that's a key component, right? These
Absolutely.
universities that we have,
Right.
where these students graduate, higher education, they want to stay there looking for jobs.
Right.
That's what employers are
This
looking
is, I mean, we're Bob Buckhorn and Stump Speech right now, right? It's like losing my daughters to Charlotte.
Yes.
They don't have to go anymore. They can get everything they want here.
And would you say that's the number one thing or close to the top list on an employer is like, where are my people coming from?
Schools?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Higher education.
Yeah, all of all the degrees. Yes.
And part of that's having a cool place to live,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to do, right, the revitalization of downtown and the Riverwalk and extending the
Riverwalk,
streetcar.
Game changer.
Game changer.
Absolute game changer.
Game
It's
changer.
fantastic.
Along with the West River. And I just got an email. They're going to be doing some sort of groundbreaking on the West River Walk. That's going to be right there at UT. You come from the Northeast, right? You join UT. You got the
Yeah.
palm trees in the sunshine.
Right?
You do an internship at one of these companies at 1001. You're not going back up north.
Why would you?
Why
Right.
would you? Right?
Right.
So I think all of these things we're talking about are completely connected. I mean, there's no one thing that's like the defining feature. It's all connected.
It's amazing to me. This is real world example. I've got a really good friend from college. We both went to Wisconsin together. He's from Pittsburgh, raised his family in Pittsburgh. His youngest daughter just went off to college. Where did she go? University of Tampa.
Wow.
Grew up in Pittsburgh, University in Tampa. One of my cousins who lives in the state of Wisconsin, his son is graduating high school. Top on his list is University of Tampa.
Wow. So there's buzz being created, up there
Yeah,
about
yeah,
Tampa, about University of Tampa. Wow. Yeah, if you look at like UT's Barstool social page, it's like everyone at the pool and working out and walking around. And I don't blame these kids. I mean, this
mm-hmm.
is a fabulous place, right? And another thing too, so I have a couple kids from UT that work with me. And when they go back up home, I'll kind of keep in touch with them. And of course, they're posting on social media, their coffee shop, their restaurant back up north. The Northeast does have a hell of a lot more figured out. We said this earlier, transportation, et cetera, but also with some of these like neighborhood commercial amenities, interesting little coffee shops, much
Yeah,
like St. Pete has, I would say, that part further developed than
sure,
Tampa.
sure.
That's what I'm encouraged on too, is like these kids come here, people move here from the Northeast, from the West Coast. David's from Washington, right? Everyone's kind of congregating here from different parts of the country that are further developed than we are,
Right.
bringing their ideas,
Bringing
bringing their
great ideas.
businesses. All of it is a snowball. I mean,
Right.
all of these things are a snowball, and it's hard to deny the momentum we have as a
Right,
market.
right. It's hard to get going, but once you go, and if we're very fortunate in that we've got pillars of the community here that have been very thoughtful
Yeah.
about looking at growth. And we're building off of that. And it's all still relatively new. I mean, we've got a slide in the deck that speaks to population. The city's doubled in size since 1980, I think is the year.
Yeah, you had some crazy stats in here. Let me try to find it. If you can find it first, David, let me know. Let me see.
There you go. 106% population growth since 1980. I mean,
400,000 new people since 2014.
right.
10 years, 11 years,
Yeah.
400,000 people. And again, there has been articles breaking down those demographics. They're wealthy, they're educated, they come from larger metropolitan markets like we've talked about in the Northeast. So, and the reason I bring that up is they're going to demand higher level of services. They're going to want higher paying jobs, right?
Right.
All of that sort of stuff, which again adds to this
Cycle
big
feeds
snowball.
itself. Yep.
75% of students from UTampa stay in Florida post-grad. I wonder what that stat was back in 2014. Because I would imagine most kids would go, I'm out of here, right?
Right.
You'd have to think it's less than 50.
And not only are you losing them after they're done with school, but you look at the total number of kids that were enrolled students that were
Sure.
enrolled to begin with. I mean, the school has grown. It's the number of students has probably doubled in size as well.
I saw 2021, 2022, an article about UT's applications, and they got like, I'm probably going to exaggerate, but like 20,000 applications during that era, like something they were like so unprepared for. And
Right.
then you look at some of the real estate plays they're making.
Mm-hmm.
They bought the old, is it Bank OZK property right over here on Boulevard? Try to find that, David, in the Business Journal. If you type UT purchase BLVD, it should pop up. But you look at what's entitled there, they could build like a 20-story, pretty significant student house. I mean, they've got room to grow, is my point.
Right,
And
right.
they're making those commitments.
They're a great growth engine for the region.
100%, if they can just get a football team. If they get a football team, then it's just lights out, right? Then you're going to get a ton of kids. University of Tampa buys prime site near Oxford Exchange. University of Tampa has paid over $10 million for less than an acre of land near Oxford Exchange. Officials won't say what they plan to build. You have to imagine it's more room for students. I guess this is not technically on campus. We'll see. So,
And again, the development and the spillover effect. There's the Henry, which is a student housing project that's located east of Ashley.
right, east of Ashley. And then they've got the cool like shuttle that can
Yeah.
go back and forth. I was at Little Tina, Tiny Tina, I think it's Little Tina Coffee Shop, downtown Tampa. I go in and it's like these students working on laptops, right? They're well dressed, and then walking around that area, right? On that same block, 220 Madison, student
Mhm.
housing
Right.
directly downtown.
Right.
So you're almost developing over time an urban highly educated person that graduates in the urban core. They're used to living downtown. They're used to walking. There's no reason why those people are not going to want to apply for jobs within the urban core and continue to stay
Right.
in this urban kind of environment and community.
That's right.
That's where the trend really is going,
Which begets more development, and the cycle keeps repeating.
and the cycle keeps repeating. Are you seeing so we talked earlier about those huge leases, those record
Yeah.
leases that were signed? Um, and I believe were they suburban areas?
Those were large projects in the suburbs in West Shore and just north of West Shore.
But again, in order to get a lease that size, you're probably not
Right.
looking around the corner from here. You know, you're
Right.
right.
So, what happened over time, and we go to the beginning of development, Tampa had the traditional downtown of the banks and law firms and accounting firms that occupied big chunks of space in the best buildings in downtown. And then some of them over time migrated to West Shore because of some challenges. Maybe they couldn't get additional space to grow, or they just were working differently and they wanted new space. Parking has been a challenge in downtown Tampa, and I know we've talked about this. The supplies there, it's just scattered in
Yeah.
how you get access to it. Tampa is evolving, but we're still a little provincial from the standpoint of every block matters. And so if it takes you an extra block to walk from where you park your car to get into the office, that affects decisions that you make. And if we don't have it's coming. Improvements are being made here, but those coffee shops on those corners, bagel shop on that corner where you can pass by and do something to enhance that experience. If you're just walking by an undeveloped parking lot, that's not great. And we're doing better than that. We're getting beyond that, but that's been a challenge historically.
Including, shaded trees, wide
Right.
sidewalks, et cetera, parks along the way, whatever it may, that connectivity.
Right.
What's our greatest challenge moving forward? From things that you're looking at in your career, feedback in your office, feedback from your investors. Um, what's something that uh, you believe if we could solve would amplify everything we've talked about today in a positive way?
I mean, there's no escaping transportation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's center of the bullseye,
Yeah.
and then we get into the infrastructure of the city, beyond that. And I know that we're working really hard to maintain and improve upon what we have, but there's unfortunately some deficiencies that have to be addressed.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed on my side, on the residential side, is the hurricanes, right? The
Right.
storms and the resiliency behind that. I'm going to knock on wood really hard here. We've had a very light season. And when people move here from around the country, frankly, they're scared. There's a lot of questions regarding
Sure.
storms.
Right.
They want to be in resilient property. They want to be in new construction if they can afford it. They want the impact windows. They ask a million questions about flood zones, as they should.
Mhm.
To me, that's something that not a lot of people are emphasizing. Transportation probably is the biggest thing, but storm resiliency is very important. Had we had another issue this year, we've seen people turn away from the market
Sure.
because of hurricanes,
Sure.
right?
And all the things that are associated with that, right? The insurance costs and
Exactly.
construction costs in general to remedy, and now we're getting into projects and the time frame for projects, right? And so, what maybe a lot of people don't know with regard to the building department and permits, it's the building department. Whether you're putting an addition on your house or you're building out an office space, it's the same department. And so when things happen, there can be some bottlenecking because
Yep.
of just the volume of applications that come in.
And I know people have been vocal to the city regarding the building department,
Yeah.
and the city has said, "Look, we've gone through. I think the mayor said 23 or 27,000 building permits just this year alone.
Wow.
They've got to get through all the regular stuff.
Right.
I want to build a house.
Right.
We need to build GasWorx. We need to build this. We need to build that. Along with my house was destroyed. I need to do a complete overhaul, and I need a building permit for
Yeah.
that. Right.
Yeah. Let's call it my part-time job, which is not a part-time job. I currently serve as the president for the Tampa chapter of the National Association of Office and Industrial Properties, NAIOP. And we've got a group of folks that are members as part of that organization that sit down every few months with the city and review where we are with regard to what can we do as a community to help expedite that process.
What are those answers?
we're working on it.
It-
but,
it-
but we're at the table, right? So it has to start there.
yeah, I think one thing, and this was said today at that transportation panel with the Ybor Chamber was some of those people have, I think a lot of those people have came from other markets. I know like Greg Slater came from Maryland, and Raul, I think, worked in Jacksonville in South Florida, right? And all of those people, most of those people, they seem to all have this sense of like, this is a real community where the elected officials and the business community and then some of the agencies really work together in a way that they don't see in a lot of other markets. And that's kind of like what you just said, right? This is the
Yeah.
business community having a deep relationship with the city to just come to the table and say, what can we do to assist?
We're very special in that regard. And I can just speak from my own personal experience, how the business community relates to each other, like where I came from in Chicago, in relation to how we work together here in Tampa Bay. I mean, it's much more familiar, it's much more collegial here, it's much more cutthroat in markets like that.
Much more cutthroat because you have these old generational
Yeah.
relationships of maybe distrust somewhere along the line, or talk to me about Chicago and how that relates to that relationship with business and government.
I mean, just the scope and the scale of everything is just bigger, and so
Yeah.
it becomes more intense.
Higher
It becomes more
stakes.
exactly. It becomes much more competitive. I think we're very fortunate in that we've got a close community, close knit community across the region.
Yeah.
When I first moved here, there was 727 and there was 813 with regard to area codes, and they were kind of, we don't mix, house divided, if you will. We don't see that really at all anymore. And so I think the mayors have done a good job. The EDCs have done a really good job of looking at everything from a regional perspective, because just because Clearwater wins on something doesn't mean that Tampa or St. Pete has to lose.
Mhm.
That's definitely not the case.
That's going to be big moving forward to solve some of the larger regional issues like transportation.
Right.
We all have to come to the table at the same time.
Yeah.
And the reason is this slide right here. When we come to the table, we are the number 3 largest MSA in the Southeast.
Yeah.
But if we just come as like the city of Tampa versus Orlando MSA, they're going to kick our ass because they probably have 2 or 3 million people,
Right.
whereas the city of Tampa has 400,000.
Right.
So if we can get that's probably the next step of where we are as a region is getting a more dedicated effort regionally to get grant funding, different projects done, et cetera, right?
Right.
Coming to the table as a region.
Right.
And you're definitely starting to see that.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. What brought you to the Tampa area in 2005?
My now 20-year-old daughter, who's a junior at the University of Wisconsin. Yeah. Living in downtown Chicago in a high rise. Her mother was pregnant with her, and this is one of those stories, Garrett, where I kid you not, it's October, it's late in the month, and it's a rainy weekend, and we're going to look at an open house. And I looked at her and said, "You want to move to Florida?" And she looked at me like, "What?" Because we'd never talked about it. But coming from the Midwest, coming from Chicago, felt like 80% of the time we went anywhere on vacation was somewhere in the state. Having a baby, and at the time, her wife's or mother's parents were living in Bonita Springs in between
Okay.
Fort Myers and Naples, and my mother was in Leesburg. And having access to grandparents within a 2 to 2.5 hour drive was important. Quality of life was amazing.
Sure.
And again, we talked about this and the migration coming in specifically from the Northeast and from Chicago. Cost of living,
Yeah.
your dollar went a lot further, goes a lot further here, even now, in relation to those other markets.
So it started out with the weather?
It started out with the weather. I wish I could give you another really unique example,
You know
but
what?
it's just that's the honest reality.
There's a million people like that have that story,
Sure.
right? Like you guys. And I think native Floridians are a rarer and rarer breed, but what's not to love? I think we're just blessed to live in this amazing place, and of course people want to move here. I think it's good that we understand as a community how high demand we are, because then we can better plan for the future.
Right.
I think being naive and pretending, like I kind of said earlier, how some people are saying this is a bubble and people are exiting, and it's like, we have a lot to offer outside of cheap prices from COVID and people moving from the Northeast.
Things have changed meaningfully. Like we used to get calls from investors that would be looking at prospective office investments across the state, and they would predominantly start in South Florida. And then as things got really frothy in South Florida, they would look at markets outside of Miami and Fort Lauderdale, and we would get calls, and they would want to know specifics with regard to these other markets, and we're like, there's so much going on in Tampa. I can't be an expert in Miami. It's too much.
Wow.
You really have to specialize with regard to local knowledge in the way that the dynamics of that market work. But if you're in Manhattan, you don't know that. You see Florida as a state, as one market. They did. That's not the case anymore. But when I moved here in 2005, 2010, probably getting back into like the late 2018, 17, 19 range, there was a perception that Florida was one market. And now they know the nuance of our respective of cities across the state.
You have this Tampa or I guess Tampa Bay, Lakeland, Orlando, this I-4 corridor logistically, right?
Right.
Some of the logistic operations and the industrial deals getting done. That's really impressive too. When you look at Central Florida and the population of Central Florida, you got to imagine there's big firms around the country looking at kind of that Central Florida market as a whole
How
too.
many households they can service within a very short period of time. And again, I'm not an industrial guy, but that's why that's my understanding as to why the development there has occurred, and why we've got, depending on your perspective, it's Tampando or Lampa. I mean, it's really, everything's getting blurred.
And we'll see what happens with the Rays, right? It's like I think the ownership group is mostly real estate people, and everything I'm looking at, and from what they've said, it's like they want this sports and entertainment
Right.
complex of
100
some
acres.
sort. 100 acres, and you start to paint that picture. Maybe you don't have 100 acres in Ybor Harbor. I know that's
No.
been on the radar for a while. HCC fits the mold. Fairgrounds fits the mold. Fairgrounds would be a different thing than HCC. HCC could be more urban, plus close to the airport. We talked about some sort of like a light rail or a people mover. You
Right.
could connect. I mean, imagine you fly into the Tampa airport. You don't even rent a car. You just go
Right.
straight to your hotel near this new development, which is where the Yankees play spring training, Raymond James, Taylor Swift concert, Braves baseball.
I hear
Like,
ya.
holy smokes,
Right.
that's exciting.
Right. And beyond that, at some point, Brightline to Orlando, and then maybe down to South Beach if you wanted to do that, or out to Clearwater Beach. I mean, it really would be spectacular. I am, unfortunately, this missed me. But when the People Mover was in place connecting Harbor Island to downtown, it's like, that would have been amazing. I wish we still had it today.
I know.
Shocks me that they decided not to keep financially supporting it.
Downtown just got eviscerated. Like people just work downtown, right? And I'm talking like
They did,
central business
right.
district. Like that's what that was for
Right.
20 years. You had there was those cycles of growth, like kind of around the time I was born. You had some office towers come up, late 80s, early 90s. Then there was a little bit of a lull. People Mover got ripped out. It was just Suitcase City. Then you had the 2000s boom, all these towers get announced, few get built, crash. And then it was like a little lull upwards until basically the last decade or so, it's exploded. But back to a 100-acre sports and entertainment development. Would you expect office to be a part of something
Could
like
definitely
that?
be a part of that.
Could
I mean,
definitely.
Hydes was conceiving that as part of what they were looking at doing with the Tropicana site.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it was a big number. It was 1.5 million feet, if I remember correctly, of office space that they were contemplating as part of that development. That's robust, especially if you look at, again, the scale of office that we've been talking about. There's another pad for an office building to be built at Heights Union. That's a little less than 200,000 feet. There are a couple other sites in and around West Shore.
Heights Union is like Armature Works, correct?
Right. So technically, the name of the development is Heights Union.
Okay.
The food hall is Armature Works.
Got it.
It's the same place.
Got it. And does the property like HCC have more merit in regards to office space versus the Trop site because of the landlocked nature of Pinellas County?
That's a really good question. I really have to think on that. I think it's all about mixed use. And even if you go back to, and I know you've had Nick Haynes on and talk about the Midtown development and how that was going to be at some point 750,000 feet of office space with a hotel, and then that project completely transformed. There's the 150,000 square feet of office space that they built as part of Phase One, Midtown West, and then there's this now 420 with 290 of it being Tico. So it's a modest amount of office, relatively speaking, that's performing because of everything else that's there. So that by itself isn't really going to be a destination that's going to be in demand. But when it's there with that activation, with the vibrancy, with multifamily retail, all those other things, that would, if something happens in and around that HCC location, it would be very well received by the market.
Yeah, and then adding to the fact, like after a Bucks game, where do you go for a beer?
Right.
There's like Wing House, kind of a few blocks south. It's like, and I think the Glazers, right, the Bucks ownership have came out and said, we envision a mixed use, sports and entertainment kind of deal around Raymond
Right.
James Stadium.
Right.
So you put that together. What the reason I ask is, in my head, I'm assuming the 100-acre real estate venture, and I know the Trop site is not 100 acres. I think it's less than that. Maybe 80s. I think we said that.
86 or something.
But if you're going to compare the Trop site versus HCC, from what I've talked to you about today, it seems like HCC is a stronger market to do a larger mixed-use real estate development, including hotel, office, et cetera, because you've got access to I-4 and all the markets surrounding
Right.
Tampa Bay,
Right.
whereas St. Pete, you're probably driving a half hour before you even get to like Tampa,
Right.
and then you still got.
Which again, I don't mean to downplay St. Pete in how fantastic it is. It's just again, you've got challenges that you don't have on the Tampa side. Again, the water. I mean, it's a benefit, and you could look at it as a curse. Again, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's
Sure.
just again, it's something that has to be literally traversed, and you don't have those challenges in other locations.
So here's the aerial of that area around Tampa Bay Boulevard and Dale Mabry. I think the HCC director came out and said, hey, we like the deal. Maybe we get a few new school buildings out of it, right?
Sure.
Obviously, the land right now doesn't produce tax income. It's just county-owned, school board-owned land.
Right.
So
Providing a service to the community, education.
right, and then you're talking about if that gets developed as a mixed-use project, that's some serious tax income, which again goes back to funding transportation, funding
Right.
infrastructure, all these things we've
Right.
discussed.
And then where does the development of whatever the next HCC is going to look like occur, and what can happen around there?
And is it intertwined in this development?
Sure.
Can HCC be included in the mixed use? You've got students going to a ball game and they've got restaurants and
Right.
stuff like does it all work together?
Sure.
In a similar way in the 1970s when the city and the county got HCC to come to Ybor, that was the
Right.
idea, right? So
Right.
it's like maybe
Right.
a similar thing can happen in this area right here. I think you do have some challenges where you've got some neighborhoods around here, which there's going to have to be some conversations there. MLK has the huge hospital complex. There's large offices up here, I think, in healthcare and
There is. So Highwoods has a development there called Tampa Bay Park on the north side of MLK. Baycare bought three office buildings that are part of that park, and they're making it part of their health. It's ARC. Is it ARC? I should know the branding of that. Shame on me. They're looking to expand beyond the hospital. Take non-patient facing services and needs out of a clinical building and put it into where they could go, so you can free up space to do more good work.
And then Fairgrounds has the land, state owned. There's something to be worked out there, but then it to me it doesn't have as much merit because it's this suburban area. You probably could draw a lot of people though. You're in a good spot.
There's a reason why the casinos expanded the way that they've expanded. There's a reason why that amphitheater exists. And so you're right.
Yeah.
You can still get there pretty easily. I don't know if the dynamics are going to be as compelling as some other locations.
Yeah. Well, we shall see what happens. It'll be really, really interesting. Jim, it's been great talking to you today.
It's a pleasure.
This has been
It's my
awesome.
favorite thing to do.
Talk.
Yeah, about office space in Tampa? Yeah.
Have you been on a podcast before?
I haven't.
Well, you got to come back, man. This
Okay.
was a lot of fun.
I appreciate it.
Anyone interested in office space from an investment standpoint? I'm sure you're interested in young people. Sounds like
Yeah,
you've talked a lot today about college kids.
yeah,
I wanted to ask you about that too. Have you had any sort of relationship with any of the local universities about students wanting to get involved in commercial brokerage or
sure.
commercial real estate?
Yeah, the real estate community does a pretty good job of welcoming in real estate program kids from USF and UT and UF and FSU. FSU's big,
Yeah.
as you're probably aware. And even to a certain extent, UCF. And so most of the firms will host an intern class every single summer. We're going through what ours is going to look like in the next couple months, and for kids that would look to just get exposure to the business.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate in that Tampa's a market, and again, this is not going to surprise you because you know more than most. But we get sought out as a market from kids across the country because they see Tampa as one of the next best places to be in the country. And so I give these kids a tremendous amount of credit for doing what they need to do to put themselves in a position to relocate here because of where they see the opportunity being. I wasn't that smart when I
Es-
was 18, 19, 20 years old, but they are. And we have somebody that's working in our tenant rep team right now. He went to Rutgers, and so way up in the northeast in New Jersey, and identified Tampa as a place where he could see himself starting a career, and he's done exceptionally well.
Especially in the real estate industry, which I
Right,
think is what you're pointing to.
right,
I mean, I get DMs and emails pretty often from students. Hey, I'm looking to move down and get a career in real estate. Is this real? I'm like, look, we are at probably the ground floor of something incredible for our industry.
sure,
There might not, I mean, I'm a little biased, but there might not be a better market in the nation for real estate. There's a lot of kids from larger markets that probably feel like a little fish in a huge pond. And I always tell them, like, here you really can make a mark. We have had a lot of growth, and there's so many exciting things that we've talked about today that have already occurred. But this is a drop in the bucket compared to what's to come. I mean, there is so much more development coming to our
right.
region, and it's not just like a couple projects over the next decade. We probably have we have a career ahead of us. If you're 20 years old and you get in real estate, you have a career of growth ahead of you.
Right.
So I always tell kids, yes, man, like yes, get involved. It's a great market.
Right, right, and again, it's hard. They get tantalized by all things South Florida.
Yes.
Is
But a lot of them have told me like I've had a couple people that have worked in those markets in bigger firms, and they're like, it's just crazy down here. I'm
yeah,
like, look, we have a little bit of a southern kind of
yeah,
hospitality
yeah.
thing here that you do not have in South Florida.
We see that for sure.
That's probably that might be the biggest cultural difference. If the easiest way to understand it is just simply that. It's a different type of people that have come from different places, which means the culture is different, which means it's all different, right?
Hmm.
I mean, traditionally, people that have come to this market were the Midwesterners.
Hmm.
People that have come from the Northeast were down to South Florida.
Right.
Lots changed, obviously, but traditionally, that's the way it's been, and that's kind of why we have a more easygoing environment here.
I agree. Yeah, I'm one of those people.
Exactly. Jim, thank you again
Pleasure.
for being on the
Thanks.
show. All right. See you next week. Bye, everybody.